In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a box that has a two-piece design. It can be 3D printed and then put together. It has hinges and it has a latch. You'll notice here that I've got it animated. I do want to show you that this is in two pieces. The base is one component, and that has these little spheres right here. Those spheres will act as the hinges, and then the lid has an equivalent sphere, but in a negative space. And if you look at those when they're created, there's a little gap between the two, and that's very important so that this can be put together when it's done. There's also a latch up here in the front, and if I animate that, you can see that there's a little hole, and the latch can come down and snap into place. So why don't we go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a new design, make sure my origin's turned on, go to the home view and create a sketch on my horizontal axis. Now I want this to be centered around the origin, and so I'm actually going to create this, instead of using the rectangle tool, I'm going to use the line tool. Now I know what size I want to make mine, and I want the walls to be 0.1 inches thick, so I'm going to start by creating some lines. First, I'm going to go to the left. Ooh, look at this, I'm in centimeters, so I'm going to change this first to inches. My dial caliper was in inches, all my measurements are in inches, so I'm going to create a box in inches. There's nothing wrong with centimeters. So you make yours however big you want. I want mine, here we go. That's going to be 1.9 inches there for me to the left. Then I'm going to go 1.9 inches to the right. This is all just based on measurements that I've made. You make your box however big you want. I'm going to come up vertically. I'm choosing 1.7. All right, there's that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and close out my box. And there we go. I'm going to hit finish sketch. And now I got to zoom out. Now I have this nice base. So here is a base, and I'm going to extrude that upwards. Now I'm going to extrude this up just as high as I want. It depends on how big the object is that you're making. I'm going to choose 1 inch because that's nice and clean, and then I'm going to hit OK. This is now the basis for my box. The easiest way to make this into a box is to hit this button right here that says shell. Click on the top, and I have learned that 1/10 of an inch is just thick enough to make a nice little box that 3D prints quickly and strong, but is not going to take forever or cost $1 million to print. So now I have the base of my box, and why don't we go ahead and create our lid. We can go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to create that on this top plane right here. Here's my top plane, and I'm just going to create a rectangle, and it's going to come around just like that. Finish the sketch. All right, and now you'll notice I can't see it, so I might need to turn off my bodies so that I can see my sketch. And I'm going to extrude that up 0.1 inches because that is also the thickness of my shell. Make sure the operation is new body here. All right, and now that just made me a base and a lid. So I have a bottom and a top. Before I move on, I want to go ahead and make these separate components. So I'm going to take body 1, which is my bottom. I'm going to right click on that, or 2-finger click on a Mac, and I'm going to say create components from bodies. That's going to create this thing here called component 1, and I'm going to rename that box. Now I take body 2, which is the lid, and I'm going to right click or 2-finger click and click create components from bodies, and I'm going to say there's component 2. I'm going to click on that and call that lid. It's important that we make these components and not bodies, because now these are two separate items, and components can be exported individually to make our different pieces. So now, so we can 3D print. So now I have the box. This box would 3D print. You could put it together, but obviously there's nothing holding it together. So we need to create some latches and also a hinge. I'm going to create my hinge back here on this back wall. To start with, I'm going to turn off my lid, and I'm just going to start. I'm going to click the right side view. I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at my box. I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to select that face right there. I'm going to go up to this corner. I want my hinge to actually fulcrum right here on the edge. So I'm going to create a center diameter circle. For me, I decided that I'm going to create a hinge that is 0.2 inches around. You can play around with this, or you can just directly copy this if you want. If you're making a bigger box, you might need a bigger hinge. There's 0.2, and I'm going to say finish the sketch. All right, there's that. Now I'm going to grab just a piece of this, and I'm going to extrude that, and I'm going to go this direction with it. I like to keep it nice, clean numbers, so I'll go in, how about 1 inch? Does that look good? That looks good. And I'm going to use the join command over here. So now I have a nice little 1 inch cut. 1 inch is easy to remember. I'm going to come to the other side, create a sketch right here, and likewise I'll zoom in here, tap here, 0.2 inches, finish that sketch, click there, extrude, and let's go in 1 inch. I'm just picking easy numbers. Again, we can use join. If you are into other things, you can also create one and use the mirror tool to create the second, but I'm trying to keep this simple here. Now you'll notice I cannot create the hinge because there is something in the way right here. Oh no, there's a piece right here. I'm just going to click on the top of this, and I'm going to hit extrude, and I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm just going to drag this down. You guys see how that just automatically kind of knows? I'm going to extrude that down 0.1 inches, and when I click OK, it's going to get rid of that extra piece. There it is. It actually, Fusion did the work for me. And now I'm going to create a sphere. Here's a sphere. I select a face, then I select the center point right here. Should automatically find it. I'm going to make mine 0.1 inches, which is a nice shape. You can play around with whatever size you want. And over here, instead of cut, I'm going to choose join. Now I have a 0.1 inch sphere right there. Let's turn around, go look at this other one. Same thing. Create, sphere, select the face, select the center, 0.1, and join. Okay. I now have myself a box. This box has a nice little spot for the lid to attach. Now I can turn my lid back on and start to take a look at what I got here. I need to come in and modify my lid so that I can make this thing work the way I want it to. I'm going to come up to the top here. I might actually choose the top view, and I am going to, let's see here, I'm actually going to create a new sketch. I'm going to create it on this top face. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to create a box. Start right here, come over here, and I'm going to go, this was 1 inch. 1 inch would cut out, so I'm trying to cut out the top of the box. 1 inch would allow me to cut out the top of the box, and I'm going to bring this in, yeah, let's say 0.5. Let's see if that looks good. 0.5, finish that sketch. So what I'm attempting to do here is to take a piece of that. Now notice, see this right here comes all the way around. I'm actually going to inspect this. Now, let's close this real quick. I need from here to here. That is 0.1 inches. I need to cut out 0.1 inches here, but I want to cut out just a little bit more than that. So I'm actually going to cut out 0.11 inches. So close that. I'm going to take that sketch I just made, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to take this box. Let's see here. I'm going to go to dimension right here. Right? And I'm going to say 0.11. Right? And now I've just created exactly the dimension that I want. The other thing I'm interested in is I want to create a little gap right here. So when I showed you this box that was completed, you want a little bitty gap between the two sides. And when I made this before, I chose to create a gap right there that was 0.25 inches. There it is. Oh, sorry, 0.025. So my new box, I'm actually going to want to hit the dimension button, and this needs to be 1.025. And I'm going to say, okay. And notice now that actually cuts me out exactly halfway to the end of my sphere. If you made your sphere a bigger size, you're going to have to make your own tolerances here. Now, finish that sketch, just like that. I'm going to click on the top of that, and turn off my box just so that I can see it. All right, and extrude downwards. Okay, there it goes. Let's turn the box back on. Now check this out. I have a nice little gap here. Got a nice little gap right over there. All right, that's beautiful. That's gonna work just great. That's gonna work great. Now I need to do the same thing to the other side right over here. I can do a couple things. I could restart the whole thing. Instead, I'm gonna go back to my sketch. I'm gonna edit it. I'm just gonna click on this. I'm gonna say copy. Let's see here. I'm actually gonna, so I'm gonna click on this and I am going to mirror that. So the mirror button is right up here. The objects I'm gonna mirror are, here we go. This, 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 and this. The mirror line is what I'm gonna mirror it around. Now I made sure to create my box around this axis. So if I turn off the box, I can select the Y plane, or sorry, that's the, yeah, whatever that is, this one here, that vertical plane. And you can see that's gonna take my square and create an identical one just right over here, which is awesome. And now I'm gonna go back to my extrude command so I can finish that sketch. Go back to this extrude command, edit the feature, and now instead of one profile, I'm gonna select that one too. And when I hit OK, it's gonna make me two that are perfectly identical on each side. All right, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Now let's make ourselves the top half of the hinge. I'm gonna turn off the box. I'm gonna create a new sketch right here. Zoom in. I'm gonna create the exact same shape. It is 0.2 inches. Just like that. Finish the sketch. Click there. I'm gonna hit extrude. I'm gonna drag that all the way over to the other end. If it doesn't wanna go, see how it wants to go either too short or too long, and I'm like, I don't know which one. Over here, I'm gonna say, instead of extent type distance, I'm gonna say all. All right, that didn't work. Extent type, how about to object? I'm gonna drag it all the way to here. There we go. Let's say distance, and we're gonna go straight to that other end. That ends up being negative 1.75. Make sure the operation is join. There's that. Now let's create our holes. Zoom in right here. Create sphere. Select the face. Select the center point. 0.1 inches. Operation is cut this time. That's going to create that nice little hole for me. Let's go over here. Same thing. I'm going to do create sphere. Select the face. Select the point. 0.1 is my number. Make sure the operation is cut. Okay. Now I'm going to turn my box back on. Let's check it out. Check it out, people. Beautiful. Now I have a box with a nice little hinge. All right, and this is going to 3D print beautifully. And I might double check. See this little gap right in here? I want to make sure I have that gap so this doesn't rub. And I want to make sure this has a little gap so that I can pop this in place when I am done. Now let's make the latch on the front. All right, I'm going to start by looking at my lid. I'm going to turn off the box, and I'm going to create a sketch. I want to make it right in the middle. And part of the reason I made this box centered around the origin is that now I can select this vertical face right here. Just select that as my sketch. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to create a rectangle. I like nice, clean, pretty little numbers. There's 0.5 inches goes out, and we'll go down about ½ an inch. That looks pretty nice. All right, and actually I'm gonna make that just a touch larger because my box is 1 inch tall. Let's actually do this. No, that's not what I want. Dimension. I'm gonna change the sketch dimension. This right here is going to be 0.6. My box is 1 inch tall, my lid is 0.1 inches, so this is gonna bring me down exactly halfway. There's that. And then I'm gonna create a little bitty piece of a latch here. And to do that, I'm just gonna make a little triangle. All right, now if I come in too far, All right, 0.1 inches is the thickness of my box. I don't want to come in that far. I'm just going to come in like 0.025. That's the same tolerance that I have for my lid. I'm just going to make this little latch thingy. And this is something you might have to play with as you 3D print your first and second prototypes. Finish the sketch. Now I have a lid, this big old thing right here. There's that. Maybe it's too long. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to hit Shift and select that one. And now let's extrude. Instead of extruding in one direction, I'm going to choose symmetric. All right, and when I do symmetric, this is actually pretty cool. I can just drag this and it will do it in both directions. And now I just make it just sort of whatever looks good to me. The width, I don't have a perfect answer for you. I'll do 0.25, that looks nice. And then I'm going to do Operation Join. And now my lid, maybe that was too long. You might want to make yours shorter. I don't know, it's your box, you do whatever you want. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to stick with that right there. Now I need to make the corresponding hole in the box itself. In order to do that, I'm going to go down here and first take a look at my box, create a sketch on this face. I'm going to turn on my lid just briefly so that I can zoom way in. All right, and then I'm going to create a hole that's just ever so slightly bigger. Just ever so slightly bigger than that thing that I just made. Just like that. And then finish that sketch. Turn off my lid, click there, extrude it inside. That'll create me a nice little hole. And now my lid can come down, and my lid can sit in that latch. And you'll notice, check this out, I did not make this very well. I did not make this, my sketch is too tall right here. So what I might want to do is go back. First, I'm going to check out this sketch. I'm going to remind myself, how tall was that? All right, this right here, this dimension, how tall was this? I'm going to inspect from there to there. That was 0.05 inches. That's how tall that this little wedge here is. 0.05. I'm going to finish that. I'm going to go back and edit the sketch here. And I'm going to change the dimension of this vertical bit to 0.05. All right, and now that is the same height as the cool little box that I made. And I actually think I need to make it 0.05. Let's see here, turn the lid back on. Yeah, and actually I'm going to move this whole thing. I know, you love watching me change stuff. It doesn't really want to move, so let's actually make this 0.06. So there's that. It's got a nice little buffer on each side so that it can pop into place, but I want that to be a nice tight fit. There's a chance that you want to make that like 0.07, and then that way you get a 0.01 inch buffer on all sides to make sure that the thing will latch in place, but then the lid might rattle. It's hard to know until we actually 3D print the thing. So now here's our box from the inside. Here's this latch, which is going to come in and snap into this hole. And maybe we want to make this deeper. It's entirely up to you. All right, so now I have a box. Now we've created a box. To double check that the movement is good, I'm going to take my two components. First, I'm going to right click on the box and click ground. And that's going to lock it to the ground. And then I'm going to hit joint. And I'm going to joint my lid to my box. In order to do that, I'm going to zoom in right here. I am going to choose, let's see here, we can choose any part of this here. How about if I choose the outside of this ring right here, and then I'm going to choose this ring right here. And now we know that there is a 0.025 inch gap. Make sure that that's built in. I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to change the motion to revolute. And when I do that, you'll actually see the lid start to rotate around, which is pretty cool. The lid's going to rotate around and show us how it's going to move. And I can say, okay. Now I'll come over here, and now I have a joint. There's Revolute joint 1, and I want to change the angle. So I'm going to say edit joint limits. And I'm going to choose that there's a minimum and a maximum, and let's go from 0 to 180. And then it will come, we don't need to do that, 0 to 180. And then when I animate that, now the lid will only open a certain amount. Cool. And so now I can come in here and take a look at this guy. I can actually right click here and do drive the joint. And I can ride this joint around, and I can take a look at it while I'm driving the joint. And I can see that there's no interference. So I think this is going to work. This looks good to me. I'm going to say, okay, you may want to do a fillet or a fillet on the edges. You want to do a chamfer. You can put holes in here, write your name on it. When you are done, right-click on the box, save as mesh, right? And then the format will be STL. And then the unit type, I believe we want to use inches. Some people have had luck exporting in millimeters, actually. But we may have to play with that in class. And then click OK. And save it with your name and the name of the box, turn it in, and then let's 3D print your prototype in class. And this has been a video about how to make a box with hinges and a lid.